Buenos dias, y'all. Happy Friday. Got the NCAA tournament playing in the background. I wanted to use it every March. I always try to bring the tournament in because I love it. I love watching the games. And so the topic of today's video is go big or go home. So many of us have heard this. Many of us maybe use it. But do we really apply it? What I want to talk about today is thinking big. Thinking big. So I'm reading this book called The One Thing, and it postulates this idea that all of us, through our thoughts, we construct a box for ourselves. And the scope of our thoughts lets us know what size the box is that we make for ourselves. Some of us have small thoughts, so therefore we construct small boxes for ourselves. Some of us have big thoughts and we think big, which means we have big boxes for ourselves. Either way, you're constructing a box, that box has a ceiling and that box has walls and it confines you in some way. Your box is going to determine, so your thoughts determine the size of the box, and then the size of the box is going to determine the actions that you take. So if you've got a small box, then the actions that you need to take in order to fill that box and get to the ceiling and the walls of that box, they're going to be pretty small actions. However, if you construct a big box because you think big, then those thoughts or those actions have to be big actions in order for you to get to the outer parameters and limits of that box, the walls and the ceiling. So my first question to you is, what kind of box are you constructing for yourself? Do you think big or are you somebody that thinks small? Many of us think small, myself included. Why do we do that? So that's the next question. If I'm thinking small, why do I do that? Let me back that up with another question. If I asked you right now to tell me what your limits were, tell me how successful you can be in business. Tell me how good of a cyclist you can be. Tell me how wonderful of a parent you can be. Tell me how good of a spouse you can be. Like if I asked you to tell me what your limits were and you actually came back to me with an answer, you would be lying to me as well as yourself. As human beings, like nobody knows their limits. None of us know our limits. We don't really know them. You may think you know your limits and you may have an idea of what your limits are, but have they ever been really tested? Have you ever been taken to that point where like it was proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that those were your limits? And the answer to that is no. So if we don't know our limits, watch how this plays itself out. If somebody asked me as a cyclist, what is it that you want? And I would go big. I would say I wanna ride a Grand Tour. Milan-San Remo is tomorrow. I'd love to ride an edition of Milan-San Remo, like actually in the pro peloton, right? Many of us would go big with that thought because we don't know our limits. But then we get into the nitty-gritty of life, and what do? We think small. Why did it happen? Why do we do it? Can I trace us back to our childhood? Have you ever been laughed at? Have you ever said something and somebody laughed at you? Have you ever had an adult tell you that you couldn't do something? Have you ever had somebody tell you that something was silly, that you couldn't do it? You see, as kids, like a kid signs up for T-ball and that kid thinks he's going to the major leagues, right? The little girl starts taking gymnastics classes and all of a sudden her mind goes immediately to making the U.S. Olympic team and being, Simone Biles, right? Kids, that's what they do. They don't know their limits, and they know they don't know their limits, so therefore they just push, and they think so big. Their boxes are huge. But then we get individuals that begin to tell us that, hey, that box is too big, my friend. It's too much. You can't do that. Or better yet, we begin to tell ourselves that. It doesn't even take another individual. It starts taking circumstances. How am I going to get to that level? How am I going to do that? I mean, look at me, look around. I don't have any money to start a business or whatever it is that you think is your limitation. And slowly but surely, we begin to build our box through our thoughts. And that box is a small box. You know what's crazy though, is that many of us, as we go through our lives, and you may have done this already, I know that I've had to do it. All of a sudden you wake up and you realize that you've like totally outgrown your box, but you can't move because you're stuck in there and you're confined in that box. And you realize something, man, I constructed too small of a box for myself. I'm better than this. I'm capable of more than this. And then what do you have to do? Now it's double the work. You have to tear down that box and you have to build another one, a bigger one. But instead of going all the way big, instead of making a huge box that, who knows, maybe you'll never fill, I don't know. Instead of doing that, we build a box that's a little bit bigger than the one we had before. And so now we're setting ourselves up to, you know what? Maybe outgrowing that one. But you know what the sad part about it is that many of us, because we think ahead and we're thinking that box is like my limit, then you grow to the size of the box that you create for yourself. I posted this on Twitter yesterday. The guy that, and I don't know his name, but the guy that owns Guinness, when he opened up his first brewery, he took out a 9,000 year lease. That is absurd. That doesn't make sense. Like, why would he do that? Because he constructed a huge box for himself. And he realized, rightfully so, I like Guinness, by the way, he realized that he was going to be successful. Not because he had a lot of money, not because maybe the recipe for Guinness was the best, not because he had the best location for a brewery, but because within himself, he had a belief that he was going to be successful. And if he came across a circumstance that wasn't ideal, he was going to circumvent that. He was ready to be in that building for 9,000 years. That's playing it forward. That's awesome. Why can't we think like that? So I encourage you guys, think big. Have big thoughts. I mean, the tournament going on right now, why is it that a 15 beats a 2? Why is it that there's always a 5-12 upset? I know some of you guys that think, you know basketball and you study brackets and stuff like that. Well, that's a good matchup. I mean, they got tall guys inside and they match up against their style of play, and these people have this coach and he got out coached and this and the other thing. No. It's a lot simpler than that. Can I tell you? Like, that might be a small part of it, but can I tell you that the 15 seed that beats the 2 seed, can I tell you that their box is huge? Can I tell you that as a team and as individuals, they've created a culture where their box is huge and they grew to the size of that box? They didn't pay attention to the fact they were a 15 seed. They went, and that stuff happens. Why doesn't a 16 seed beat a 1 seed? Can I tell you this? It's because it's never been done before. So therefore, if you get a 16 seed, that's like going to the Cleveland Browns, right? It's like the death wish, and it's never been done before. So guess what? As a 16 seed, I'm going to construct a very small box for myself. I know it has a lot to do with X's and O's and coaches and style of play and all that. I get it. Like the 16 seeds coming in on the back foot maybe. But is it possible? Is it ever going to get done? Why hasn't it been done? Why can't it be done? Like, these are all very interesting questions to ask. And I encourage you to ask these questions on a personal level in your own life. Let's think big, people. I put this out because I believe in you. Believe in yourself. Think big. Do big things. Hey, thank you guys so much for sharing this video. I'm sorry I got it out so late. Had a long ride today. I'm recovering, didn't get much sleep, but we got that work done. So anyhow, I appreciate you guys. You guys have a fantastic weekend, and we'll chat with you soon.